Science advances in its understanding. God knows all about it. He created it. Sometimes he tells us things and it's centuries before man understands why. I'm thinking of when to circumcise a boy. Now they know that 8th day there are certain things peak, so infection is less likely. But didn't know it back then, but they'd still get the blessing of obedience. In the early 1900s, in 1901, an early health commentator said, "Let them preserve the health and increase the strength by avoiding the large amount of cooking which has filled the world with chronic invalids." Well, that's a pretty strong statement. After all, don't we need to cook our food? Also said, by precept and example, make it plain that the food which God gave Adam in his sinless state is the best for man's use as he seeks to regain that sinless state. And, well, what was that? Genesis 1:29. Give you every herb bearing seed, and every tree in the which is a fruit of a tree, yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. So there you have your basic fruits, grains, nuts, vegetables. And people have experimented at great lengths with diet. I myself was interested at a young age to see what it would be like to live on a raw food diet. I lived out on the plains of Montana, so I ordered in cases of cherries and grapes. I lived on fruit mostly for 3 months until I just couldn't stand not taking a bite of that salmon in the refrigerator because I was hungry for protein, right? Wasn't too educated. I just was exploring. I had already visited the National Health Federation convention twice, where experts from all around the world gather and set up their booths, and they have lectures and debates. And so it wasn't like I was going into it blind. Later in life, I did 8 months totally raw, and another time, a year and a half. And in maybe 40 or 50 years ago, there was a man named Howell who set forth, now this is, I'm commenting on the advancement of understanding, right? Of why is this? What is it about raw food that has health benefits? Well, for one thing, we know that the enzymes start to die if it's in a wet environment at 118 degrees. If it's dry, it might take till about 150 to kill the enzymes. But enzymes are very important in the liver, turning them into all kinds of things in its magical chemistry laboratory for our health. And it was always taught in earlier century science that enzymes are just catalysts for other things to happen. But Howell came along and wrote a whole book. It was called Enzyme Nutrition. And let me just read you a little bit about it. Food enzymes in raw foods help start digestion right in the stomach, reducing the burden on your body's own enzyme production. This is the core idea from Edward Howell's work in Enzyme Nutrition. And I read it. I read it years ago. He argued that constantly forcing the pancreas and other organs to make digestive enzymes drains your overall enzyme potential, which he linked to faster aging, illness, and lower stress resistance. Using food enzymes from raw sources preserves your internal enzyme reserves for other vital tasks, like metabolic and repair functions, which he believes supported better liver health, among other things. Howell described enzymes as protein carriers charged with a vital energy of life principle, distinct from just caloric energy. He presented this to the medical world as a new understanding, Consuming these intact enzymes from uncooked food conserves the body's enzyme bank for longevity and energy. His axiom was that lifespan is inversely proportional to how quickly you exhaust your enzyme potential. More food enzymes mean slower depletion. Well, it wasn't an uncontested statement. And I'll let you do your research. But we know that, for example, the Pottinger experiment with cats, fed them raw meat, they were fine. Cooked it, in 5 generations, they were deformed and could not reproduce. Just 5 generations of cats. Now, when I went totally raw for a long time, I experienced negative effects and positive effects. There was a couple living up in Spokane, Dr. and Mrs. Scott. He was an orthodontist physician, and they'd been raw, totally raw, for decades. And so I've learned that it takes skill and knowledge and understanding and preparation if you're going to go raw long term, because these bodies have adapted to cooked food, and they have to be retrained and retooled. And it's a rare person that goes raw and stays raw the rest of their life. And I'm not even saying you should do it. But what I'm trying to do is tell you that we have good counsel, plus more recent science. And I will say also, my personal experience, a high raw food diet is better for me. What happened when I was like a year and a half raw, my vision just became good again. I could read the fine print at the bottom of my study Bible, no glasses. I thought, that's a pretty big deal. What's going on? And I was composing music, and I would say the best music I've composed was when I was on a raw food diet. It's a quickening thing. You know, Daniel fasted when he got his quickening from the Lord. And you can dumb yourself down just overeating, having high glucose levels all the time, high insulin levels, develop insulin resistance, get diabetes, join the rest of the epidemic in America of diabetes. So I would recommend, in light of the counsel we have from the early 1900s and recent science, that you join the great experiment with your own test tube and see what the results are in your laboratory. If I don't get cooked food in a meal, raw food in a meal, I crave enzymes. I've learned what they feel like. And I miss them. And even after a meal, if it's a cooked meal, I'll go searching for something to give me that enzyme. I don't think it's an unhealthy addiction. I think it's my body telling me, the original diet you didn't eat today, it was cooked. And Adam and Eve, as far as we know, did not have to fire their food. They picked it off the trees and out of the garden. And since that original diet is the best, why don't we trend back toward it and see what God can do to restore the original character of man, what kind of health we can enjoy, and show the world that God's laws work. And we don't have to fall into civilizational degradation by picking up the latest standards of our own culture. But push back toward Eden. The Bible says, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do, do all to the glory of God. Dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and the spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. This is spiritual. This isn't just the physical, doesn't affect our spirit. We're a whole being. And so let's consider how to eat good, wholesome, whole foods. By the way, that commentator also said that grain should be thoroughly cooked. There are some foods in the form they come to us, they have to be broken down. They're not made to just put in the mouth and eat. Try to eat some raw soybean someday. Not only that, but it has enzyme inhibiting properties that will, as it did me when I got some raw soy, or not partially cooked soy grits. At the end of the day, I couldn't digest it. My body threw it up. And I was young and healthy. So anyway, a little bit on the experiment. We're told to taste and see that the Lord is good and come to an experimental knowledge of truth and God. So, thank you.